G'day everyone, Rangadad here. This is not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. This is just my daily market scan that I do, and hopefully you guys can get some benefit out of it as well. Sentiment is an interesting one today. Retail seems to, or dumb money, I guess call it, yesterday was up, and up quite a bit. Smart money did follow a little bit as well, but nowhere near as much. So it looks like the plan has worked for Wall Street. They are sucking in dumb money again. And there's a lot of other stats that I don't have access to, but as always, FX Evolution has some really good stats around this sort of stuff. But like retail's never been this long. Money managers have pretty low cash levels. There's just a lot of leverage in the market still, even with the recent flushes. So the buy the dippers are still out there in force now. Got a decent trade at the start of the session today on iBet, and it's pretty well run sideways and down since then. Coinbase, it's getting some buys around these lows, which is a sign that it might be finding a bottom. I wouldn't really call that a guarantee though. These bids in here, big bids at the lows, would suggest that people are expecting Coinbase to go up. Again, not a massive amount of dark pool activity there. Marathon, I was actually qualified contingent trade, actually a phantom trade. Interesting. So Marathon Digital is getting some action at the lows as well. So could mean we are getting close to a low on Bitcoin. Yeah, it's starting to look more and more like it, but not quite convinced yet. Consumer discretionary hasn't made it back past these big dark pools, so it's looking like a potential top in there. Consumer staples are still heading to the upside, so again, shift into more defensives at the moment. Technology still grinding up, and utilities are still grinding up a bit as well. Again, more defensive sort of sectors. So Bitcoin, it was interesting watching these big spikes get taken out yesterday. The liquidity heat map basically went back to normal. But as you can see, we've got a lot of big longs in the charts now as well. So I guess a retest around, the 94.5 is definitely on the cards here. Just because of that, I don't often see this left for that long. The other thing is too, it'd be great to see another sort of decent red, decent patch of red on the funding perps. Just it typically is a better signal of a bottom. CBD is heading down as well across the top here, so it's not a great sign. But it can be quite reactionary as well. So at this stage, it looks like we might confirm this as a resistance level in here. Just looking at CoinGlass, similar sort of deal. Open interest is dropping. Lots of red on the bid-ask delta. there's a lot of selling pressure through here. Whether the bulls can actually overcome it or not is another thing. We'll just have to wait and see. Funnily enough, the bulls could not really overcome until they went really hard at the bottom here, and they're still struggling to get through this area, which they failed to sort of break through before. So at the moment, it's not looking great. There is a bit of interest here on the futures CVD aggregated one, a little bit on spot as well, but spot is still trending to the downside with CVD. So yeah, a little bit of a divergence there. Higher low on spot CVD and a lower low on price. Could suggest that it may actually try and make a run for it. So yeah, it's a tricky one. The other thing too is there is quite a bit of liquidity up around. You'd probably make it through to about the 97,200, 97,300 on Binance. Same sort of deal on the others, 97,200. That seems like a pretty attractive level for price at the moment. Now, it could just be a liquidity sweep, a bit of a bull trap. If we zoom out a bit, actually, I'll zoom in for a sec. Yeah, there's still a fair bit below, but it looks like it does want to come into that level. Even 97,400's not a bad level for it. Yeah, we zoom out to the 1 week, then you start getting targets that are closer 99.5 and stuff like that. If we confirm this as a bottom, then I got no problem. It should be heading to those pretty easy. And if we zoom out, it's probably going to be honestly even further than that. Yeah, 99.5 is almost a given. If we confirm this is a low and actually change the trend. And yeah, you'd kind of expect it to attack this level here as well. 107.5 to 108. What I did want to get to was liquidation map. So come down here, the 1 day is getting a little heavy to the long liquidations. Still a lot of short liquidations in the chart, so for the 7 day and for the 30 day. So it is still overbalanced to the upside. Still kind of surprised they didn't come into this area yet, and I don't necessarily think it's over yet either. I think it's looking less likely now, but there's still a reasonable possibility that it'll come into that. So just having a look shorter time frames, this 800 EMA on the 15-minute, which is the 200 on the 1 hour, is a pretty key level for Bitcoin to get through. If it does get through, then all the momentum will pretty well be to the upside. Starting to get reasonably high. This been playing around with looking at longer periods and stuff for moving averages and momentum and things. And look, momentum is to the upside at the moment, obviously, but it is reasonably overextended too. So just beware of that. We do have a few wicks, vector candle wicks to the downside. Particularly, the one I'm most interested in is probably this one here, down to around the 94 level again, which would potentially be another retest of this channel that we've had on the charts for ages, or Probably look at it more as a trend line at the moment. But look, Bitcoin's been coiling for so long that it could actually rip. I haven't looked to see what the FOMC meeting minutes are doing. Interesting. Or Litecoin ETF. That news is probably going to push Litecoin a little bit higher. God, there's some fucking stupid news stories out there. This to me is still a key little wedge in here. This is the big trend line that I want it to really get above before I get too excited about longs. But look, this is a pretty good break and retest of this downward trend line, which does have some history in it back to the highs here. So that's a positive sign for the bulls for sure. Momentum's still higher, but it is ticking back up as well. So we get some BBWP expansion here on the 1 hour and momentum still pointing to the upside, then I would expect it to break through that. Or at the very least, you're going to recover this vector in here. So what we don't want to see is it basically slam up against this and reject off. That would recover a fair chunk of this vector candle and retest that longer term trend line. And it would probably reject this 200 EMA on the 1 hour as well. So this is the critical levels for Bitcoin. It's not looking bad, but I just want to see a bit more confirmation yet. Even on the standard Bitcoin chart itself, on the 1 hour, we've got the point of control there as well. So that point of control is basically going to be at essentially the same level as that trend line on the total versus stable coins. But again, not the worst setup here for an expansion in volatility and in the upside direction. So you look at Bitcoin itself on the 1 hour, and there's actually not many, well, there's no real vector candles that haven't been recovered. That's a positive sign. So yeah, I'd say it's looking a lot better. Just go to the daily. Daily's still struggling to get through that 9 EMA. And if we close the daily up above the 9 EMA or even above the point of control would be a really good sign for the bulls. Closure below, and then you still got to be a little bit wary. Just going to check out some of these I haven't looked at for a while. No real buy signal there on the smart money indicator. Hash ribbons. Hash ribbons hasn't got a buy signal yet, but looking reasonable. I mean, it's had the capitulation signal. I don't know what the don't know what the criteria is for buy signal on this. Yeah, all right. So it's one to watch out for. If this does throw a buy signal, then typically the previous low, macro low, will be the lowest close for a significant amount of time. As you can see there, that actually worked out pretty well. That was the previous macro low. We have not gone back there. So it'd be good to see that fire off. Another interesting thing on the daily is momentum is actually ticking to the upside on if we close somewhere around here. And BBWP is starting to expand, still in the extreme low area, so you can get BBWP expanding as price switches momentum. But typically on the daily, this would be a relatively good signal that you go into the upside. I guess if it's something similar to this, which not necessarily saying it would be, we did have momentum just switch to the upside as BBWP started expanding. We did get another daily candle up, but it did retrace right back into that level before then actually expanding again. So look for something similar to that. I don't think it'll necessarily just go bang to the upside, but there are signs that Bitcoin wants to turn around here. And look, it's recovered most of this week. It's retested the 50 moving average. It's just, there's a lot of headwind, I would say, for Bitcoin at the moment. But global liquidity is still, it's ticked down a little bit today, but in general, it's still in an uptrend for the time being. Let's have a quick look at these stocks. So advanced decline line, I'll have a quick look at that. Has pulled back a bit, but in general, advanced decline line is still suggesting that we could go up a little bit more. That breakout to the upside hasn't really been met with the same sort of price action, but whilst this is still trending to the upside where you got both moving averages short above the long, it's kind of hard to be bearish. That'll be an interesting close as well. To me, that would actually suggest, like, that's a pretty positive momentum signal there. That's an interesting one. I think above 6150, and I think positive gamma will come into play a bit as well with the options, and that could actually drive a decent run on the S&P 500. Equal weight Qs had a big day yesterday, a bit flat today. No real suggestion yet that it's going to break down, but just having a rest. This looks like it's going to be another all-time high close today on futures. Not on NASDAQ minis though. Minis are still struggling. They've recovered this vector candle here. There's been no real test of this trendline break either, at least not on the high time frame. So yeah, the markets are, they're playing silly buggers at the moment. Qs looks like potentially another all-time high close if it closes somewhere around here. Just seeing them pull back as I'm talking about them though. Just remember the pros govern the close, retail governs the open. Like that's a saying, it's not necessarily true. Institutional investors pretty well at both ends. but they're most active at the start and the finish of the day. So, yeah, I mean, that's looking a little bearish on the cues there. Say PMI, I think it is, comes out on Friday. That's probably going to be one to watch. Turn down while BBWP is increasing wouldn't be great. Oh, okay. Interesting on the 1 hour. 1 hour's got increasing BBWP after a reset, while momentum is squarely to the upside. It's worth noting here that we had a similar downside signal last time, but we had that one candle to the upside, and yeah, just went on a run. What you don't want to see is this basically a big rejection candle, switch in momentum as BBWP is still increasing. That would be quite negative on the markets. But for the time being, that's hinting at further upside. And there will be short squeezes at the top here too, so be aware of that. We do still have a couple of months left to really play this 15% out as well. Still not 100% sure that would happen, but it could. Again, decent momentum signal there. Equal weight S&P 500 is still kind of grinding up as well. Still hasn't broken that range. A little concerning. IWM's still lagging. XLI is still breaking out of that little downward channel it was in. XLI's probably got a fair way to run if markets do actually go bull. It could make a new high. Look, statistically, we should have quite a few new all-time highs on S&P 500 this year, given how many we had last year. But I don't know. I'm more inclined to look at price action and key metrics than actually those sort of statistics at the moment. These things haven't really been running like they have in the past. It's another XLY, XLP is sort of confirming that break to the downside. That's suggesting a bigger pullback on markets potential. Yeah, I would say that's a negative sign. This is a negative sign as well. Looks like it wants to retest this resistance again. If it breaks through this resistance to the upside, market should really come down. Some more equal weight XLY, XLP. It's retesting this trend line. That'll be an interesting one to look at tomorrow. If it breaks below that, then yeah, we could chop for a few more days or a week or so still, but break to the downside and confirmation of that break is likely to lead to a decent pullback on the markets, in my opinion. This is another negative sign, the equal weight XLY versus SPY. No, XLP, sorry. Yeah, look, this, to me, that's confirmed that little trend line break. This trend line's the next target. I suspect it'll actually get through there. just based on how much the market's coiling at the moment, if we do see a 10% move to the downside on markets, 10% plus, then you'd expect this to be breaking through this trend line. That's going to be the signal there's potentially more to come. Should be some resistance up around here though too. Just going to put that in as a level. So consumer staples is still moving up, equal weight. Discretionary is sort of looks like it's wanting to come down. Still kind of in an upward trend, but that's potentially a lower high there too. KRE is still flat. See, these things not breaking through and just going flat here, it's not a great sign. They're coiling, we just don't 100% know which way they're going yet. ITB though, that's again pressuring the downside. A few more days of down here, we could actually see a bounce, but wow, if we break this neckline, it's not going to be pretty. That to me would suggest markets have peaked or are very close to it. Same with home builders. Some pretty key levels around here. Semi's still kind of grinding, trying to close that gap. DJR gold is still at this key level here. DJT gold still rejecting that level. So there's plenty of signs that the economy's not great here. DJT couldn't make a new high here either. Closure below the previous day's closure is not ideal either. Coming off reasonably high momentum. DJI, same sort of deal. It's coiling at the highs. Momentum's down, but BBWP is really low. These markets are primed for something. It just depends how many people are expecting him to go up and how many are expecting him to go down. The fact that retail is and dumb money is so bullish still is probably a contrary indicator. VIX down. It spiked through the day, but it's still down. Skew, as I said yesterday, we actually saw this after the close. Be interesting to see where this heads today. Kind of expect this to pull back, to be honest, but if this is going to another high, then that would seem quite ridiculous compared to what it's been in the past. Like that was the high in 2021. It was actually the high on global liquidity as well. That's interesting. It was pretty well at the low of Bitcoin in the middle of that run, which is weird. What was the S&P 500 doing? The S&P 500 still ran after that, even though skew came down. Skew was trending down. Huh. Where were we in 2011? Yeah, look, markets could still go up as skew sort of starts to make its way down, but typically when skew starts trending up again, you're getting close to the bottom. So an interesting one to keep an eye on. 2018 drop was a pretty big one on skew. S&P 500 dropped pretty significantly as well. Interesting that Bitcoin dropped off before the stock market in 2018, January 2018. Kind of did the same thing in 2020 as well. And it's kind of doing the same thing now, potentially. Just whether this global liquidity is on its way up in a big way or not. That's the thing for me. Like, if global liquidity increases, then there's no real reason for markets to go down. But yeah, you can see here the skew seems to be a better read more recently, and could be the options are used more now than what they were back in 2008. But it seems to follow more the trend in the markets. It started to go into a downtrend, really put in a lower high here before or as the market was peaking in at the end of 2021. And yeah, back into an uptrend, and you're generally going to suggest that the markets will keep going up. But so yeah, be looking for changes in trend of this, put it that way. It does seem to give an indication of where things are going at the moment. It's not suggesting that we've really found the top, but on a day-to-day basis, it's been reasonably good at showing a direction bias for the following day. So see what happens with that today. The VIX 1 day, again, if I invert this, it's still going up. With increasing BBWP too. So I don't know, it's still suggesting that we might grind further up as well. It's just there's so many signals that underlying things that there is issues in the economy. It's just Wall Street's doing really good at smothering them with moving money around. That's a pretty negative candle on the DAX. The German market may have just found its top. Again, probably expect a retrace of this candle, at least 50% of it. Not necessarily straight away, but I'd kind of expect at least some sort of dead cat bounce to get up into there, just to fake out all the shorters, just short squeeze them. HSI, sideways at the top here. Obviously, this was always going to be a resistance area, but still looks reasonably strong. I certainly wouldn't be longing from here. Better area for a long would be back in around this level here, the 21 level. But it could still keep going too. At least for a little bit, at least up into the 25 level. That would not be out of order given the pumps that it's had in the past. UK 100, still holding that trend line. Not looking ideal though. It's going to depend on what happens at this trend line, whether we get a bounce from it or whether it pulls back or not. Japanese market pull back. This thing's just been a sideways sally for so long. Looks like it's rolling over on a BBWP reset, but that's a tricky one too, because BBWP reset after it's been so shitty and sideways for so long. BBWP could bounce and chop around and before it actually goes in one particular direction, like this sort of thing. Like the expansion of BBWP there was actually the right direction, but you had some momentum change the downside twice in that run. TLT up a little bit. High yield junk. Interesting. That's an interesting retest of that trend. This is the second time it's tried to break, or third time really, it's tried to break out of that trend line, and it's failed twice already. That looks more promising than the previous times though. So if high yield junk keeps going to the upside, then markets are reasonably bullish. LQDIEF though is suggesting something a little bit different. Momentum's still the upside though on it, so just bear that in mind. The bond market seems to be a little bit undecided, but looks like another rejection off this particular trend line as well. For the US 2-year, so you'd expect that to keep coming down. Momentum has just switched. Well, it is to the downside on the 10-year as well. Not a bad thing for stocks to actually move up. Chinese 2-year and 10-year still kind of trending up. Copper's still having its pullback. I'd kind of expect to see copper to come back somewhere into the $4.48 level. Could bounce though, like I haven't really recovered that vector yet. If it's super bullish and markets are super bullish and the economy, they're happy with the economy the way it is, then yeah, this could actually bounce earlier than a full pullback into this area. To me though, that's sort of the support area in there. Which is going to be pretty close to a 50 fib as well. Uranium still dropping like a stone. Everyone got excited about uranium there. Bit of a bull trap. Gold, again, looks like it's just sweeping some shorters out of the market. Indecision candle at the moment there, so wait and see what happens. But like as I said, I closed out my gold position and the silver the other day. Just not convinced that it's going to go much higher yet. Oil is an interesting one. It's looks like a bottoming pattern here, but at the same time, it's also looking like it's failing to break that trend line as well. So be careful with that one. Yeah, it depends where you draw your trend line here, doesn't it? Could almost say that it has broken out. Look, I still think oil should actually go back up at least into this trend line, especially if the market's looking okay, which you could make a case for either side of that argument at the moment. Dixie, it's getting rejected here from that previous support. I wouldn't say that it's fully confirmed that as resistance yet, but it certainly has rejected off that during the day, and particularly off the 9 moving average there. But momentum looks like it's, ooh, excuse me, momentum looks like it's actually switching back to the upside. So kind of momentum on the longer time frames is a tricky one at the moment because it's been flip flopping around with all the choppiness that's going on. It's pretty nuts market at the moment. We just need it to make a decision in terms of which way it's going to go. Yeah, this a little bit concerning today that global liquidity's having a moment to the downside. If that lasts for more than a couple of days, I'd be a little bit concerned. But at the moment, if it's just sort of a retest in here of this 9 moving average or even the 13, it's not too concerned. But yeah, if we're putting in a lower high here and we actually break these sort of levels, that won't be good. So percentage of stocks above 58 moving average, pretty flat yesterday. Mag 7 is pretty flat again. Haven't broken back above that trend line, so it's looking more like a rejection of that at the moment. Tesla, yeah. Momentum suggesting more upside, but again, it could be a bit of a grind sideways and up just to retest this level. India, yeah, rejection off that trend line so far. It filled the gap, didn't really recover the vector candle yet, but it has filled the gap. So yeah, not the healthiest looking chart if you're a bull on Nvidia. Google's still finding support around here though. I suggest if we break below here, it's going to very quickly fill that gap down to 176 and retest that 200 EMA there. Microsoft, interesting bounce on Microsoft. And obviously that's turned into a reasonably important level. Just looking at it in there. So it's worth just leave that on there because if we do break back down, that's going to be a key level. If we break below that, puts the 390 into play. ARK's pulled back again. Retest this level's okay. Break back below this level, and I would suggest this is a fake out and it's risk off, and that's probably a Wyckoff distribution. Apple's still struggling. Triple M's had a decent day. That's actually looks like it could go on another run. Amazon's still struggling. Meta has followed through after that big red candle. Yeah, meh. News articles are rubbish. Airbnb, so there's a fair bit of profit taking going on here. Looking like it may want to close this gap. AMD still looks like it's breaking out of that trend line. Not in a big way though. Struggling. ABGO. Broadcom's still, again, is this a accumulation or a distribution? It's really tricky to tell at the moment. SMCI, decent breakout. It's continuing through after earnings there. Maybe some profit taking going on there as well, but it's a weird one. I thought that would run a little bit more than that if it was going to keep going. ASML struggling a bit. TSM's a bit different in that it's above its 50 moving average. Some of these are still below their 50 moving average and their 200. That one's broken back above, but yeah. Stellantis, yep, found resistance there, right off that level. Again, still in a range. Ford still below its range. Not looking great. ASX 200 is tanking. Got today unemployment rate. Yeah. Not ideal. All right, so Bitcoin. Back to Bitcoin after all that. It's kind of going nowhere at the moment. It could just be coiling underneath that 1 hour 200 EMA, which if we break through that after coiling like this, it's a pretty good sign. It's not really a clear direction either way at the moment. Like cumulative volume delta isn't really suggesting there's going to be a massive breakout at the moment. Some of the momentum indicators are still to the upside, but it's a tricky one there. Just looking at it on the 1 hour. Still 11 minutes to go in this particular hour. I mean, momentum's still to the upside on the 1 hour. Haven't really had a change in direction there, but cumulative volume delta has some sell pressure coming through at these particular candles here. So these two green candles have more selling volume than they do buying volume. It seems like there's some sellers sitting right on this 200 moving average on the 1 hour. Yeah, I think at the moment it doesn't look like we're going to break through this. If we do, then it could actually, it actually brings 98k into play. And they're my key levels going up. First is a 97.2, but looking at this, yeah, 97.2, 97.3 is probably going to find a bit of a pullback. Yeah, at this stage, still coiling below key levels, which is a good sign, but all you need is one big candle at the downside to wipe all this out. I always get a little concerned about longing when momentum's this overextended. can stay overextended for a while, particularly with the length of the moving averages that I got on this, but just finding it gives me better levels to suggest sort of overbought, oversold. As you can see there, turning down from much higher levels. Everything else is just sort of chop. All right, that'll do for today.